Welcome to another episode of War Hero to Superhero, helping military, veteran, and first responders transform their lives from the bedroom to the boardroom. Welcome to our boardroom and welcome to War Hero to Superhero. So we are in the boardroom this week, just like I said it 3 times already. So if you didn't see it or didn't get it, it's okay. We stream so much stuff in this world. So this month we've been talking about being authentic. We went from visiting that into the bedroom with your significant other, with your kids in the living room, and now how to bring that authenticity to the boardroom. Because if we don't practice in the most intimate places, it's going to be the most hardest to practice in the boardroom places. And sometimes we kind of over practice those things in the boardroom, and then the bedroom and living room gets crazy. So let's balance it out and let's finish it out this week of being authentic in the boardroom. So we'll be covering authenticity in the boardroom from 3 different perspectives. And today we're going to be talking about learn to appreciate, because as a leader, we want to bring out the best in our teams, right? Because in this new world, a lot of us are virtual, and it can be really easy for an employee, especially if you are managing people, to leave and to find new employment. Before COVID kicked in and before the world is now becoming a digital nomadic world, the average was 3.2 years was the average time an employee was leaving the job. For myself, sometimes was way sooner, because for me, I had multiple jobs within those 7 years before I went full-time and now working with this. So how do we keep our staff? How do we keep them employed? How do we go over and keep them here? So, because the U.S. Department of Labor reported just a couple of years ago that 64% of Americans don't feel appreciated. And when you go over and now you put us into a digital world, it can get harder each and every day to go over and to feel appreciated. So no matter if you're military, veteran, or first responder, or you're one of our civilian patriot guests, we want to help you increase our appreciation and your appreciation by learning the language of it. So this was inspired, and you can get this information and more from the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace by Dr. Gary Chapman. He's written several books, about 70, with Paul White on this particular book. So we're going to go over those languages. And again, we're only visiting a 30,000-foot snapshot. If you want to learn more wisdom, please go over and go to Dr. Gary Chapman's website and go over and find that information. You can go Google the 5 languages of appreciation. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it at Barnes & Noble. You can go old school paper if you want. You can even get the audiobooks, which are fantastic. So wherever you go, I recommend. So the first one is words of affirmation. Words of affirmations, because you usually have to do more than one. What is words of affirmation or affirmations? Words of affirmation is verbal or written words that communicate a positive message to the person. So the person is uplifted. The person is, when you talk about encourage, it means to give courage to the person. So this can be verbal as you go over and display this, or it can be written. And there's actually different dialects sometimes, even with each of these languages. Just like if you go to Rhode Island, we kind of don't pronounce our R's, and we go over and we say weird words like quahog. So same thing that happens in words of affirmation. So here are some of the examples that you can go over with words of affirmation. First off, you have praise of accomplishments. Someone goes over and gets something done for you, goes over and gets a task done, no matter if it's in an office center or in a physical brick and mortar. Maybe it's digital work they go over and do. Have you ever gone over and gone through an Excel sheet and go over and scrub it? Those things can be complicated and daunting and overloading, especially if it's tasks that are done on a regular mundane basis. Praises of accomplishment is thanking somebody for going over and doing the work in a contextualized way. Sending a quick email that just says thank you is usually not enough for these words of affirmation people. They want to be specifically praised for the accomplishments. Thank you for going over and working on that Excel sheet. I know it's excessively hard to go over and do that. I thoroughly appreciate the time and energy that you save me for going over and doing that. That would be a praise or accomplishment. You always want to contextualize the words of affirmation if your employee or employees are words of affirmation. You also have affirmation of character. Hey, Stu, I'm always thankful that you're always on time for the meetings. It's very much appreciated. You're affirming something that they regularly do because their character calls it forward. People want to be appreciated for who they are and the positive attributes that they go over and do, but also the things that they naturally are. And it lifts them up to encourage them to keep going. Praise for personality. Sometimes we tend to forget that. We always tend to think of the negative things of personality style. We go over and say, Susie is very abrasive, or Tommy is going over and very slow and whatnot. Sometimes we need to be thankful for the positive things. Abrasive could be another word for going over and challenging the person to go over and to grow. Going over and being slow might be going over and being thorough. So we need to be thankful for those people of their personality style. Each person is wired differently. If you ever watched one of our episodes, we talk about that several times, about the difference between a dominant, inspiring, supportive, and cautious person. You can find out more about that in other episodes and whatnot. So praise them for their personality, because people want to be uplifted for who they are and what they are and everything else. And we hire based on that. If you've ever done resumes, you go over and you look for the technical. That's the 15%. But most people get hired on for their personality. So to continue to have them, we need to praise why we were attracted to hire them in the first place. So praising the personality is key. So going from there, that's one of the languages. Where do you resonate on that? Are you a words of affirmation person? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. Can you think of an employee or a person that you worked with, either in the military or as a first responder, or as you're making this transformation and now you're in the boardroom? Maybe this can empower you to go over and to connect with people that you are leading and supervising, because no matter what role you're in, you're always a leader. The second one is quality time. And you're thinking to yourself, I'm with these people 8 hours a day. They don't need no quality time. No, that's quantity time, not quality time, because it's not the proximity, but it's the personal attention. Especially in these nowadays, we do so many things, and somewhat, if you can give a little personal attention to somebody, that goes over and speaks wonders if it's their primary language of quality time. Again, some of the examples, because quality time has a dialect, just like you go over in words of affirmation, just like someone from California speaks a little differently than a person from Rhode Island, is some of the dialects of quality time is quality conversation. You're speaking their language, they're actually engaged, and you actually are actively listening, leaning forward, not getting distracted, going over and focusing what they're focusing on so you can connect with them. That's one way to go do that. Let's take a few minutes to go over and do that. We can shut off the phone for 15 seconds. We can not look at that text update. We can go over and connect with information. We can listen with our ears and not listen with our brain, and then go over and respond appropriately as a quality conversation. If Susie is talking about how her day is stressful, I'm like, oh, I can see where you're coming from. It has been a rough day. So is there any way I can go over and help you with that? That's a quality conversation. Or maybe sometimes at the bubbler or at the virtual water fountain, or taking a virtual latte and connecting with people. No matter where you're at, either in person or not, a few minutes in quality conversation on occasion, especially if you're supervising people. I would recommend, if you're supervising and you're leading people, 8 hours of your day is your billable work day, but actually 5.5 hours is the actual productivity and work. You should be spending at least a couple hours a day with your people to go over and give them that quality conversation. Now, obviously, you have to know which styles are looking for that, but I would recommend that roughly 60% should be productivity in task and 40% should be productivity in people, because they're the people that are going to empower your boardroom to go over and to grow, no matter if it's virtual or in person. Shared experiences. I know we're limited on that, especially in this digital world and whatnot, but we have a multitude of ways to go over and do that. As the weather gets warmer and winter goes away, you can go over and take outside stuff and keep your distance. As people go over and get better and we get shots and everything else, those shared experiences of either doing in-person or virtual things is key. There's a lot of virtual reality apps, if your team is into those things, to go over and do those shared experiences, to have those shared games. Go over and meet online. Netflix Party goes over, for example, to go watch a video together, or to go over and maybe read a book as a team together, to share and to grow into that, or maybe even listen to a podcast or watching a TV show. Tony Robbins, great example to go over and do that. Dean Garase, I probably hacked his name. Another way you can share experiences. Maybe you go to a virtual class and learn with people together. These people that are quality time like to share those experiences with you. There's also small group dialogue, team conversations. People like working in teams, and people that are quality time love working in teams. They want to have that small group dialogue, have those regular team conversations, sharing with the frustrations, the strengths, the positive things, to have clear messaging, to go over and to connect and to laugh and to banter a little bit. They like it, that dialogue, they like it with a few people. They don't want to have it with everybody. So maybe go over and do those tiger teams, those smaller teams, or maybe those niche teams, to go over and to have that. And there's also team projects. Work can get boring if you're just doing the same thing every single day. People that are quality times of appreciation language like to go work with teams on a project, something that's short term. Usually the person that's higher in quality time, they like to go do those team projects. They like to have a short-term goal that's going to have that return on investment, that sees the fruit of the labor. The people that are quality time like to go work with people, so they rather go over and do something that's really arduous and short-term and time-bound than the things that are just continual, task after task after task. So maybe integrate those people into team projects, and that's where they can go over and thrive, and it shows appreciation for them. Appreciation language number 3 is acts of service. Acts of service. This one doesn't have a dialect per se, but they have some tips to get it right. So acts of service is they love people. I put a little S in there, I shouldn't have. They love people helping to get the job done. So if they have a big, huge task, they love to do that. An example of that is in my work, I have to go over and convert a bunch of training records from one electronic system to a new electronic system, and the electronic systems are drastically different. I only have to convert them there for 6 months, and then we're going to a new one. It's just a transition period. So I got to put them somewhere. So someone went over and called me and said, hey, would you like help with X? And I'm like, that's great. But here's the way it went right, and here's the way it could have went wrong. So here's the tips. So tips for getting this right, and this is how they got it right. They asked before they helped. This person had authority to the system and could have did it on their own, But the thing is that they went over and came to me, they respected me, they went over and asked and say, hey, would you like help on this system to go over and get these people loaded? I'm like, yes, you asked me, great. I also served voluntarily. Did I go over and have to pull their teeth out to go get help? Did I have to constantly solicit email? Did I have to pull, civilian or military authority to go over and get it done? No. And that's the thing too, is that the people that love this acts of service want you to come and to go over and to volunteer. Because sometimes we're doing so many things because we're an acts of service person, we might not realize that we're fully burdened. And then someone coming over and taking up the load, especially in a voluntarily status, awesome, awesome. Also check your attitude. They had a really great attitude of going over and serving and empowering the community and empowering me so I can be more effective. So the attitude is good. If they had a bad attitude and they said like they volunteered, but then they're like, oh, this thing sucks, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, it's like, if their attitude sucked, I wouldn't want them to go over and help me. They also need to do it their way. So when they came to me, it's the way that I wanted it done, because at the end of the day, I'm the one that's on this service, and I'm the one that's overall responsible. So if you're going to assist somebody and show them an appreciation of them, and you come in, you need to do it their way. You don't go do it your way just because you think your way is better and your way is more comfortable. That's being selfish when we do it our way when we're serving that person. So we need to do it their way. And unless it's impossible for you to go and do it, like you have the non-capacity to do that, doing it their way is going to be the better way. And then complete what you start. So don't go gung-ho and jump in and then offer the act of service and say, hey, I can take this burden off you and go do this database, and then come in like, I only got 12% and I got a little overwhelmed myself. Here's the project back. We know those things can happen in life, but it does not go over and show true appreciation to the person if you can't complete what you start. So please go over and play chess in your boardroom games and not play checkers. Checkers is a couple moves ahead. Chess is like you're thinking 8 to 10 moves ahead. So if you can't foresee you finishing it and getting checkmate and winning the game, there's really no point of going over and offering that act of service to that person, either myself or the people that you're going over and working with. And number 4 is tangible gifts. Now, this one can get a little questionable. We'll try to go hit this as much as possible. And if you guys have any questions or comments, please go put it in the feed, either in live going over and watching this or afterwards. I'd love to go over and contextualize this as much as possible. For tangible gifts is giving the right gift to the person. You're like, this is hard enough in the bedroom. How is this going to be working in the living room? Well, here's 2 methods to get it right. First off, you got to choose the right gift. And you got to go look at your standards in your boardroom on how much you can spend and things of that nature. If you're a federal employee, it's like no more than $20, as a one-time gift, no more than $50 within a calendar year, things of that nature. So you want to check your ethics and stuff like that. If wherever you're working, if you're active duty, guard, reserve, if you're a first responder, or you're working in the civilian entrepreneur section. Obviously, if you're running a boardroom virtually and you're running a business, it's a lot easier to go do that. But as you grow, you want to first do this right. Choose the right gift. And then you want to contextualize it to the person. You don't want to just go say, hey, I chose gift cards and now I'm going to give gift cards to everybody, because that person might not want gift cards. It doesn't show appreciation to them. So the cool part is that this might sound exhausting. And even these languages in general might sound exhausting. But the kicker of it is that you can use an action checklist for the motivating by appreciation inventory. So if you go take the MOA, I think it's MBA. No, it's MBA. If you go take the MBA, so if you go download the book, so I highly recommend you getting this book, The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace by Dr. Gary Chapman and Paul White, you can get, as long as you have your digital e-receipt, or if you buy it paper, they'll go over and send you a code, that if you go over and send your receipt back to their email address, they will send you this motivation by appreciation inventory, which is a $20 value for free for you going over and purchasing the book. So if you're having difficulty tying this together, they also, as you download the book and get the examples and the stories and everything else, which we're not covering too many stories, is that you can go get this MBA, Motivating by Appreciation Inventory, and then you can use that action checklist to start building out on how you can go apply these appreciation languages, but also on the gifts specifically. And you can go find that website. It's just www.appreciationatwork.com/resources. So there's the link right there. So if you already have the digital book, you can probably send the receipt there and everything else and whatnot. So this is a very powerful tool that they went over and built. So you guys are not just saying like, hey, I hear the stories, but how do I build this into my digital or physical boardroom? Because this can be complicated sometimes. And the last one is physical touch. So the last 2 languages, they're cautions ones. Gifts, you want to make sure you're checking with people and everything else. Physical touch, you want to be cautious to use. Do you have a family-like environment, or is it a corporate professional environment? Are you going over in a physical environment, or are you in a virtual environment? And also, whenever you're watching this, if it's 2025 and we're not COVID, it's going to look totally different than it is right now in 2021. So first off, be cautious to use. Not saying not to go over and use it, but just don't do it as a rule of thumb, especially if this is your appreciation language. If you naturally look for these appreciation languages, you're naturally going to want to serve in these appreciation languages. You're going to crave it and you're going to go over and deliver it. So if you want to receive it, you tend to give it. So usually our primary languages, we want to give, and then we also want to receive. It's reciprocal. So be cautious to use this one in the workplace. Make sure it is appropriate to the person, to the culture, to the gender. Ones that universally can go over and work is a fist bump, a high five, and a virtual hug can be appropriate. So I would recommend that. So a fist bump, a high five, or a virtual hug can be appropriate. Now, in the world of like, let's say you're trying to address that with maybe the people that you're virtually with, maybe there's a way to give thumbs ups and different things. So you can go give those loves. We like the loves because it raises our business, and it also shows you that you physically care in a virtual way. So definitely go do that. And always, always, always ask for permission. Don't assume. Assume means you made an ASS out of you and me. And if you use assumption, then you got you and umption, and umption's usually pretty pissed off. So always ask permission. It's better to go over and to do that. Just because you love physical touch doesn't mean everyone else is going to love physical touch. There's so many other things. There might be things from their past that affect them. Maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe it's just the presence of what you're going over and doing. But always, always ask for permission. So I remember when I was at a church one time and people just went over hugging me. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's like, and I even had this at other places. So I'm like, because I'm not a physical touch guy. So it's better to always ask permission. Say, hey, may I give you a hug? When you ask for can, you're asking for capability. Can I give you a hug? You physically can, but I don't physically want it. May I give you a hug? Add a please in there. That usually goes over and works well, or they'll say no and it's not as offensive. So don't use your cans, use your mays, and then bring your please at the end. So our challenge and our goal for each of these things is that if you want to go over and you want an authentic workplace, it's best to know your style. Learn this for yourself first. Get to go over and know this from you, because everything we do in authenticity, you want to come from the bedroom to the boardroom. If you have no idea and you're now trying to apply it to others, it's going to be really complicated. So it's best for you to visit your style first. Take that time in your bedroom and your living room to go over and practice this. Because if you read the 5 love languages, the appreciation languages are very similar. It's just how to apply it in a workplace. So if you're practicing the love languages in the bedroom and you know in the bedroom and the living room, then now you're just contextualizing them to the boardroom. So it's best to know your style and then learn others. Best way to learn is by studying and asking. When you ask somebody, it's like, hey, I was just wondering, do you know your appreciation language? And like, what's that? And then you can trigger a conversation, share what you went over and learn, see which person resonates with that. And then if you do the MBA, the motivating by, appreciation inventory, you can go ask them that way. And then now you can contextualize your appreciation to the people that work with you. Because we don't want you to get out of the service or get out of the force and go into a business and not be appreciated. And also if you're starting a business and growing a business, you want to make sure that you're appreciating the people that well, so you can grow and thrive, not just fiscally, but for legacy. So we want legacy to carry you guys from bedroom to boardroom. So learning by studying and learning by asking. So each and every day that we do this podcast, no matter if it's at Facebook or Podopolo, or if you're watching this on YouTube or Twitch, or you're going on and watching this in the replay, our superhero challenge for you today is to choose an appreciation language. One that's not your own, and practice it with one of your employees. So you want to, again, learn by studying and asking, but maybe start practicing some of these skills. Again, the majority of them are going to be listed back in the 5 appreciation languages in the workplace by Dr. Gary Chapman and Paul White. So we highly recommend you going over and reading the resource, going to that website that we gave you, appreciationatwork.com/resources, for you to go over and practice that. So again, we want to thank you for joining our virtual boardroom this week on learning to be authentic in the boardroom and learning to appreciate. That was our topic today. We covered the 5 appreciation languages, and we're very much appreciative of you guys going over and joining us and supporting us each and every day. So we want to thank you. If you're struggling in the boardroom on being appreciative, we'd love to go and connect with you. 20 minutes free for every military veteran and first responder. And we also want to go over and to thank our sponsors that go over and support us each and every day. So thank you for joining.
Millions of men and women have served this great country. However, over 40,000 veterans sleep on the streets every night. 20 veterans commit suicide on any given day. Veterans have been left without medical services while they suffer from mental illness and addiction. They are dying alone. Join Armory Dog and the Veterans Project to help serve this forgotten community of heroes. Veterans is a place for our men and women who have served our great country, giving them a place to stay and rehabilitate in a safe and positive environment. Please help support the Veterans Project so that these men and women can get back on their feet and find their purpose for living. The Veterans Project will house 10,000 veterans, getting them off the streets, back into society, and utilizing their skills as they once used to serve our great country. Veterans